Hi! So, quick word of warning, before I start this, I'm going to have a quick update. The video that I actually wanted to make today, it has a lot of overhead and a lot of things that I still have yet to study. So, I originally was just going to go ahead and record that today, but turns out there's a lot more involved with what I was wanting to talk about, and it has to do with social identity and social categorization theory. So there's a lot more I need to read up on that before I can actually make a video on it and how it relates to autism and all that other stuff that I am wanting to talk about on this channel, which is going to be a big part of something that I believe we need to look at in order to reduce the amount of stigmatization towards people with autism and other mental disabilities and illnesses like depression, anxiety, and all that jazz. So, hopefully I'll have all that research done by next week so I can actually put out a video. Until then, we are going to be reacting to this video. What the hell is this video? It is called I'm Scared of My Own Autistic Child. So we're going to watch this, and we're going to talk about why I wasn't a fan of it. And that should become very evident rather early on as we begin to watch this. Also, I know for a fact YouTube is not going to share this because it's going to be instantly copyright claimed as soon as it goes up. So, share this with everyone. Share this everywhere you can, anywhere you can, so that we can hopefully educate people on this topic so that we don't have this type of misinformation spreading. Because this is actually why I do what I do today, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a bit.
There are families up and down the country struggling to cope with their violent autistic children.
Cam, shall I go and get your chocolate biscuits?
Stop that noise!
Are they in your room?
Stop that noise!
Autism is often a hidden disability which affects around 120,000 young people in England.
So, that's a pretty interesting statistic that 120,000 people in the UK are affected by autism, and yet you just saw that that guy with autism, how he was acting. These are more severe cases we're about to see of autism, but even they, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because of how it's being handled. Now, this is going on in the UK, but to be honest, it's also very similar to what's going on here in the US as well. I am not the norm. Trust me, there is still a huge stigma around autism and people and what people think about people who have autism. So that's actually part of why why I am trying to take a more active role in educating people about these topics. So let's continue.
I'm scared of him because you live on a knife edge because you don't know what's coming next, and that level of sort of heightened adrenaline, definitely experienced split lips, bruising all over.
Okay, first, a couple of things I do want to point out real quick is like how he was hitting his head. That's stimming. You guys see me do it from time to time. It's just the way I stim nowadays is more socially acceptable. Again, it's going back to what I want to talk about next week about social identity and all that stuff. And it's basically how my perception of who I am is changed based on everyone else around me. But she was also mentioning how she has been injured by her child, which is sad to hear. But again, we're going to get into that here in a bit. I do want to make a note that sometimes that I'm not always the rule. How I act is actually very mild in comparison to how somebody with more severe autistic traits may behave. So that is something worth keeping in mind as we progress. Remember, these are kids. These are people with much more severe forms of autism than I have.
Campaigners say some local authorities are failing to provide services that meet the needs of families and their children.
The system is not working at the moment for all autistic children, and that's an issue.
Again, this is the whole reason why I'm pushing for a more active role in the community, is because we need to educate people about things like autism, ADHD, OCD, PTSD, dissociative identity disorder, schizophrenia. All these things have really real consequences. And the only thing people did that warrants that type of suffering is the fact that they were just born into it. It's not something they chose. So we need to raise raise awareness and educate people on what exactly it is we go through, and how we can all help each other to overcome, societal pressures and things like, and different challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis.
It's terrifying, really, sometimes, because if it comes out of nowhere, there's always that bit of you that can't quite believe it's actually happening. So it's just a case of desperately trying to extricate yourself from that situation that you're in, which is easier said than done, if particularly if he's got me by the neck, which he often does.
Okay, what she's describing there is a meltdown. I'm surprised that your kid has gotten to where he is now without you knowing what a meltdown is or what causes it. What tends to cause meltdowns and shutdowns is basically your brain is being overstimulated. If you want to deal with autism, it's like you notice every one of your senses is cranked up to 11 all the time, and it doesn't let up until you go to sleep. That's what I feel on a daily basis. So you can imagine how bright this light is, or even natural light is overwhelmingly bright for me. So that's a lot to deal with, and it takes its toll on you. So people with more severe forms of autism have an even tougher time dealing with that. In fact, you guys have seen me here recently where I'm doing videos, and there's no audio coming through on the screen at all, and yet you'll see me wear these. These are noise-canceling headphones. That's me trying to limit the amount of sensory input so that I don't freak out, essentially. If you want to see what overstimulating myself looks like, I have a video that you can check out there where I actually try autism simulators, which I should not have done, but I accidentally trigger sensory overload there for a bit, and I basically had to take the rest of the night to recover. I basically retreated socially. I did nothing else for that entire day, and it was a mess. And that's exactly what this kid's going through.
Every day is a challenge for Ian and Lucy.
He's the size of a very large, very strong 12-year-old, and that's the difference. If it was a toddler having a huge tantrum and flailing around and, scratching you.
This is not a tantrum. A meltdown is far different from a tantrum. You don't actually have control over whether or not you're going to have a meltdown. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, it's painful. And the thing I'm wanting to bring attention to is, like, they're focusing so much on the negative aspects, but they are not putting any thought so far into what causes this. And that is a problem.
Not everyone with autism is violent, though. A US study of nearly 1,400 children on the autistic spectrum found more than half were aggressive or violent towards their families.
That's actually a very scary statistic to think about, because I'm not a violent person. I'm not. And most people with autism probably won't say that they are unless they've been stigmatized, unless they've been introduced to that stigma that every time you have a meltdown, that's bad. You shouldn't do that. Meltdowns and shutdowns are a part of autism. It's what happens when you have sensory processing disorder. It's just a part of how your brain works. And you can work with that to limit how often that happens.
Elliot is 12 and has the strength of an adult, but thinks like a 2-year-old. His parents say a lack of specialist help from their local council has caused his behavior to become increasingly...
Okay, yeah, I have to stop it right there. This is a meltdown. This is a meltdown. How do you not know what that is? If you watch just out of nowhere, he's biting his hand, he's covering his eyes. It's the bright lights. I can tell you exactly what's triggering him right now. It's that bright fucking light. Get him out of the light, and he won't do that as often. If he feels more comfortable wearing sunglasses and noise-canceling headphones indoors, and that keeps him from having meltdowns, I'd say that's worth a try, right? Or at very least, get some curtains. Again, they keep calling it violence. It's not violence. It has a very real cause. And it's just the reason why he's having these meltdowns is because you're not addressing what's causing the meltdowns. It's like if you have a sink full of rotten food and you're spraying Lysol to try to get rid of the smell. Until you get rid of the rotten food in your sink, it's just going to smell like shit. And Lysol, you have to address the root of the problem in order for it to go away. It's not just going to go away on its own. You're merely putting a bandage on the solution at this point.
And the problem is that the help available to you is reactive rather than proactive. You have to get to absolute crisis point when one of you is hospitalised or you've had to call the police out.
Wrong. There is a proactive solution. This circles right back around to educating yourself on what it is. And that's ultimately the thing that they're trying to point out to. They're just doing it really piss poor. If they were to break away and go, this is sensory processing disorder is the reason why he's having all these issues, and that the problem is the education, that would have, I wouldn't have batted an eyelash at that. But instead, it's made out to look like he's just a violent person just because that's how he is. And that's wrong. He is not really, he's not wanting to be violent. He seriously just cannot process the world around him properly. His brain is processing it to death. And these outbursts, meltdowns, are a direct result of that. It's all predictable, all preventable. That's why I do what I do.
So this is Elliot's room, and you can see it's not like a room that most 12-year-olds would have, that we've made quite a few adjustments. The most obvious are the bars that we have to have across the windows. You kind of get used to that, you know, your child's bedroom looks more like a cell of some kind. And it's only when you stop and step back and really reflect on it and you go, what a symbol of just how different our life is. Most people do not have to set their child's bedroom up with locks on the doors and bars across the window, but there are times when, in order to keep Elliot safe and in order to keep the rest of the family safe, that's what we have to set up.
That's terrible. You do realize this is a child, right? Not a prisoner. Again, this is just a product of the education we're actually given around autism.
Now, this family story is not a one-off. We've been speaking to many parents across the country, and they repeatedly tell us that there is simply not enough support available for their children, some of whom are also very violent.
There we go. Like I just said, I do agree with you on that, but you keep saying that they're just very violent. That's not entirely accurate. It's not violence that you're dealing with. It is a meltdown. It is a direct consequence of not educating yourself. It's just, and you're actually demonstrating that lack of education when you deliver that sentence. On the bright side, he is saying that it's because they don't get enough help, which I do agree with. There's another YouTuber out there called the Aspie World, and he actually tells his story about why it took so long for him to get diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And a lot of it is because nobody in the UK wants to actually pour research into that. And honestly, it's fairly similar here as well. People want to cure autism rather than learn what autism actually is. All they know about autism is that it's a bad thing, which is not even true. Then again, I live in a society where 67% of the people in it reject science. So there's that.
I'm just talking to Noel.
Please, please.
Stop.
Please. It scares me.
Wait, what did he just say? I didn't quite catch that.
Is one of 700,000 people in the UK on the autism spectrum. He was diagnosed with the condition at the age of 3.
I'm going to go and do your telly. I'm just talking to Noel.
Please.
Stop.
Please. It scares me.
Telly. I'm just talking to Noel.
Please.
Stop.
It scares me.
Oh, I think there might be more than just autism going on with him. I think he was having that outburst because she was standing directly in his way here. And he's trying to move from the front of the house to the back of the house. That sounds ritualistic to me. So it's either part of his routine or there may be something more going on there, but I'm not a psychologist. Again, that's just get where he needs to go and then explain to him once he's in that spot to do that. But her outburst of stop, you probably shouldn't handle it like that, because that's, if you've ever been in a situation where you've yelled at somebody to stop, you probably know that doesn't work. It actually escalates things. So, calm approach. Somebody new is in his house. He doesn't know them. He hasn't acclimated to them. and it's a disruption to his routine. That's a lot of things to take in all at once. And that is very, very taxing on somebody who is autistic. I understand that because I myself am autistic. But it's for people like this. They need somebody to advocate for them. And she's just simply not doing it. It's almost as if she doesn't give a shit.
It's really upsetting. This is horrible. Don't want people to be scared of him because he's, you know, his nature is gentle, and you know he's not meaning to be the way he is at all. And I feel sorry for him because he's frustrated and he can't tell me why or tell other people why. So it's horrible.
That is pretty accurate. It's really hard to describe to somebody else what exactly you're feeling. I'm fortunate enough to where I don't have severe autism like these two do. That allows me to actually tell people what I'm going through. Vocational therapy and psychotherapy, and there's a lot of different tools out there that you could be employing if only you knew how to access those tools. Then you would be on the right path. And it is, just like she says, he is not trying to be violent. He's really, really just a gentle person. Most of us are. The problem is, there's really, he doesn't really have the tools he needs to be functional. He was just never taught them. In fact, he was just taught, more than likely, I'm willing to guess that he was just taught to just try to cover that up and try to act normal. That's usually the first mistake people have with an autistic child.
This woman, who we're calling Sam, knows just how Hannah and Doug feel.
He hit me over the head with a plastic object, and I had to have my head glued. I thought at that point it'd be a turning point, but it wasn't. You know, I thought I'd get help, but it didn't really happen. First I got a bit of help, but then it went monthly, and then it was, right, okay, we'll wash our hands of you. You can have 48 hours a year respite from your charity. And 48 hours a year doesn't add up so much, does it?
That's actually a very good point. I'm one of those instances where an autistic person has just kind of fell through the cracks and just got pushed to the wayside. Like, society, once we stop being productive, society tends to ostracize us. And it's not our fucking fault. The system is set up almost to work entirely against people like me. I try hard not to use this term to describe people with autism, but come on, people with autism and people with mental disabilities are part of a minority group that is heavily stigmatized. And literally the only help we tend to get are things like Social Security, disability income, and things like that. And that's not what people with disabilities need. They need things like vocational training to learn how to do jobs that they are actually well equipped to do. For instance, somebody who has sensory processing disorder, like I've got, probably shouldn't be around things with loud noises or bright lights. People with crippling social anxiety probably shouldn't be forced to be in a situation where they have to be social. But unfortunately, there's just not really a whole lot of people out there. There's only one social program that we have here in the US, and it takes so long for them to do anything because they rely on Social Security, the Social Security agency, to actually fund themselves. And, well, the president has repeatedly made cuts, and Social Security is also paying out more than it could possibly take back in. But that's a whole other issue. I'm trying hard not to get too political, but that's a problem where we've only got one social program to help people like me and others out there to help them become productive members of society who can contribute and help others. And we only have that one program to offer them. And it doesn't work most of the time because people, first off, don't even know it exists. And second off, it takes them so long that they have to rely on other people like me, like with my situation in my family. I have to rely on other people until I can get back up on my feet. And there are some people who don't have that support because their families can't even afford to take care of them. I sympathize with this woman so much, simply because this is what I'm going through right now. It's like, I've tried to apply for several different government programs, and the only one I could get was vocational rehabilitation. which is basically they try to help you get a job that helps cater to people with disabilities. Notice that I didn't say that they gave me money. No. If I do need to go to like if I need certain schooling or certificates, they will help pay for most of it. As far as going to college, they only cover part of it. I would actually still have to pay for that. So, yay, that's not an option either. The problem is education is the solution, and we're doing so much to avoid educating people. Instead, we're just going to either throw money at the problem or just sweep it under the rug one way or another. And that's the problem. And that's why I'm doing this right now.
If children are not having their needs met, then they are being failed, and we have to try and work to change that system. We need a special educational needs and disability system that identifies all the needs of autistic children that are out there, and then puts in place the support and the services to allow them to live the life that they and their families want to live.
Exactly. Again, my problem with this whole thing was, first off, the title, I'm scared of my own autistic child. One of them wasn't a child, he was 19. No longer a child. 2, this is very much the result of just people who aren't educated enough. Which is why I'm currently putting out more videos like this. And most of the time I try to make it more fun and, just try to be more lighthearted with how I deliver things. But this one, I couldn't really do that here. I have to treat it with more I have to treat it a little bit more seriously and with a little bit more tact than I normally do. But hopefully I'll be able to, in the future, provide you guys with skits and stuff, as well as educational content. But if you guys want to learn more about the subject, you can check out the link in the description below for Discord, where I'm on there, as well as a couple other people. And who knows, maybe 1 or 2 of them might be autistic. Who knows? You're not going to find out until you guys go to the description and join us over there. But yes, we shouldn't be stigmatizing autism, like even to get attention like this. We shouldn't be stigmatizing it. We should be treating them with the same amount of empathy as we do regular people. Because that's ultimately the goal, is for us to know enough about autism and all the other problems that people face out there, to where we can be empathetic and we can try to help, at least in some small part, to make a difference in these people's lives. And people like me. So, if you know somebody out there who is autistic or who is wanting to learn more, feel free to link this to them, or any of my other videos on autism. Or if you're new to the channel and you want to have a laugh, subscribe. And if you want to support me in trying to spread a positive message, check out the links in the description below to my Patreon account, where you'll get small perks for supporting the channel. And you're also going to help me, support gaming videos, because part of the goal of this channel was to just show people I'm just like you. And there's nothing to be worried about. I'm just like a normal person, just slightly weirder. But that's going to be it. So I'm going to sign off. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed it, feel free to show me some love down below by hitting the like button, and don't forget to check out the annotations for more videos. And I will see you in the next video.